You do not belong here.
Get out of this flight! Move, idiot!
Who do you think you are?
Pathetic! Nobody wants you here!
The female flight attendant's voice sliced through the plane cabin like a whip. Her finger jabbed toward Malik Thompson, the sharply dressed black CEO, eyes blazing with fury. Go back to where you came from.
You're nothing! Move now!
Passengers froze. Some gasped, some whispered, unsure whether to intervene or look away. Cameras discreetly flashed from phones, catching the unfolding humiliation. Yet Malik remained calm, walking slowly past her, his posture straight, eyes cold and measured. He didn't flinch, didn't raise his voice. The room seemed to tighten around his quiet authority, and a few passengers instinctively leaned forward, curiosity and intrigue replacing shock. Even as her insults continued, dripping with contempt, Malik's gaze swept across the plane. He observed every detail, the cabin crew, the arrangement of seats, the overhead compartments, and then his eyes caught something that made his jaw tighten slightly, a subtle but alarming oversight in the plane's safety. Equipment. The oxygen masks above a row of first class. Seats were slightly misaligned. A few safety cards were missing from seat pockets, and one fire extinguisher appeared outdated. The kind of minor flaws that no ordinary passenger would notice. But Malik, with years of running high-stakes corporations, could sense the danger immediately. He paused for a moment, pretending to adjust his cufflinks, scanning the reactions of the flight attendants and pilot. They laughed, oblivious to the looming problem. A chill of anticipation ran through him. 12 minutes, he thought. 12 minutes was all it would take for everything to shift. The passengers, meanwhile, murmured among themselves. A few looked from Malik to the flight attendant, silently questioning the audacity of the attack. A middle-aged businessman shifted nervously in his seat. Children tugged at parents' sleeves, sensing the tension in the air. Malik's calm, composed expression stood in stark contrast to the chaos of insults around him. Then, almost imperceptibly, Malik's hand brushed over his phone in his coat pocket. He didn't dial immediately, but the movement caught the attention of a flight attendant nearby. She stiffened, realizing he was not an ordinary passenger being humiliated. He was assessing the plane, quietly preparing for action.
Hey, viewers!
We want to know, which country are you watching from and what time is it there? Drop it in the comments below, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss the full story. As the screen lingers on Malik's composed face, the tension becomes palpable. The insults, the laughter, the whispers, all fade slightly into the background. Now the real story is beginning. A CEO denied his rightful place, but about to uncover a danger no one else sees, ready to flip the power dynamics on this plane in a way no one will ever forget. What happens next will shock everyone on board. As Malik took his seat, his eyes didn't rest on the luxury of first class. Instead, they scanned every inch of the cabin. The small details, the slightly worn seatbelt buckles, the tray tables that didn't click securely, the emergency exit lights flickering faintly, spoke to him. The flight attendants moved around, preparing the cabin for takeoff. Some whispered among themselves, glancing nervously at Malik. They had seen the way he carried himself. Not just a passenger, but a man who noticed everything, someone who could challenge authority without a word. Malik's gaze shifted to the pilot, a man in his mid-40s with a smug expression, leaning confidently over the controls. The pilot's eyes met Malik's for a moment, and Malik detected a flicker of irritation. The man clearly thought of him as just another upset passenger, not the CEO capable of calling the shots in ways that could ruin careers. Malik's attention returned to the cabin. He quietly moved along the aisle under the guise of stretching his legs, his fingers lightly brushing over oxygen masks, checking their alignment. One mask hung slightly crooked. He bent discreetly, inspecting a fire extinguisher near the rear of the plane. Its maintenance tag had expired months ago. A slight frown crossed Malik's face. This was more than minor negligence. If the pilot ignored these issues, it could endanger everyone on board. Yet no one else seemed to notice. The crew continued to bustle, oblivious to the small but critical safety hazards. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through his contacts. Not yet to call, it was a strategic move. Malik didn't act impulsively. In his experience, timing was everything. Within minutes, he could escalate this in a way that would leave the negligent parties no room to maneuver. A young flight attendant passed him, whispering to a colleague while shooting him a sidelong glance. Malik caught it. The hint of fear in her eyes confirmed what he suspected. The crew was aware on some level that he wasn't an ordinary passenger. The pilot's arrogance masked the knowledge that he was walking a tightrope. Malik returned to his seat, sliding silently into the leather, observing as the flight attendant who had insulted him earlier continued to glare, muttering under her breath. The tension in the cabin thickened. The passengers, now aware that something unusual was brewing, shifted in their seats. Some exchanged nervous glances. A businessman whispered to his neighbor, "Who is this guy? He's not even reacting, but everyone's on edge." Malik took a slow breath. The stakes were clear. This flight could either remain a humiliating embarrassment or become a critical turning point. And he was the only one who had noticed the potential danger hidden beneath the crew's overconfidence. Malik's phone vibrated with a silent notification, but he ignored it. Instead, he looked at the pilot who was checking instruments with a casual arrogance that sent a cold ripple through Malik's spine. The man was dangerously overconfident, assuming the plane and its passengers were under control. Malik's inner voice was steady, calm, precise. 12 minutes. 12 minutes is all it will take. The camera lingers on his face, a mix of calm authority and barely contained intensity, foreshadowing the inevitable confrontation that would unfold, putting the pilot, crew, and even the airline's reputation on the line. He noticed something no one else did, and it would change everything. The plane hummed with quiet anticipation, the low murmur of passengers barely masking the tension. Malik Thompson remained seated, his posture unyielding, but his mind was racing. Every detail he had observed, the misaligned oxygen masks, expired fire extinguishers, flickering emergency lights, was now a ticking clock in his mind. He reached slowly into his coat pocket, fingers brushing the phone. Not to make a call immediately, but to prepare. Timing was critical. Acting too soon could escalate unnecessarily, but waiting too long might allow danger to escalate. The pilot, unaware of Malik's scrutiny, continued to bark casual orders to his co-pilot, his voice laced with arrogance. "Everything is fine," he said with a smug grin, confident no one could challenge his authority mid-flight. The cabin crew nodded, seemingly reassured by his demeanor, oblivious to the red flags Malik had already identified. Then Malik made his move. With a calm precision, he tapped a few quick messages to his personal assistant, activating contacts at the airline headquarters and the aviation authority. Discretion was key. He didn't want panic, only control. Within minutes, the airline's senior safety officer confirmed receipt, and the situation escalated on a chain of command Malik had expertly orchestrated. Meanwhile, whispers among passengers grew. Flight attendants shifted nervously, sensing Malik's quiet authority. Even the female attendant who had insulted him earlier paused, catching the intensity in his eyes. The hum of confidence radiating from him was undeniable. It was a silent challenge the pilot could not ignore. The pilot, unaware of the messages coursing through the airline's hierarchy, dismissed Malik with a wave of his hand. "Sir, everything is under control," he said, trying to regain dominance. But Malik didn't react outwardly. Instead, he leaned slightly forward, eyes sweeping the cabin as if silently pointing out every hazard the pilot had overlooked. The passengers watched in awe, sensing the power shift. Malik's calmness was unnerving. He didn't shout, he didn't demand. Yet his presence alone conveyed an unspoken ultimatum. Act responsibly, or face consequences you cannot imagine. The pilot's fingers twitched over the controls, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. Behind him, the co-pilot glanced nervously at Malik, clearly aware that this man was no ordinary passenger. Then Malik spoke, but softly, just enough for the flight crew to hear. "This plane cannot take off safely in its current condition. You will ground it immediately, or the authorities will step in." His voice was steady, authoritative, yet chilling in its calmness. Passengers shifted in their seats, sensing the gravity of the situation. The pilot's smirk faltered. He opened his mouth to protest, but was cut off by a vibration from the cockpit radio. Airline headquarters confirming Malik's assessment. The cabin fell into an uneasy silence. The female flight attendant who had mocked him earlier looked visibly shaken. Her insults had stopped. The power in the room had clearly shifted. Malik's gaze swept the plane again, calm and deliberate. The tension was palpable. Every passenger, every crew member could feel it. This was a man who had been underestimated, and no one in the room could ignore him now. The CEO just issued a warning no one could ignore. The cockpit trembled with tension. Malik Thompson's calm, unwavering presence had shifted the entire cabin. The pilot, once smug and arrogant, now fidgeted nervously, the weight of unseen authority pressing down on him. Malik rose from his seat slowly, deliberately. The passengers instinctively straightened, sensing the moment of reckoning. Every eye was on him. The female flight attendant who had mocked him earlier now looked pale. Her confidence shattered by the realization that the man she had humiliated held all the leverage. With steady steps, Malik approached the cockpit. His voice, though calm, carried an unmistakable edge of command. "Ground the plane, now!" The pilot opened his mouth to argue, but Malik didn't allow it. His phone buzzed again. This time, airline headquarters had confirmed all safety violations he had noticed. The flight could not legally or safely take off. Any attempt to bypass this order would have severe consequences. The pilot swallowed, his arrogance replaced with anxiety. He knew Malik wasn't bluffing. With a reluctant motion, he moved to comply, his hands shaking slightly over the controls. Malik's eyes followed every move, precise and exact, ensuring nothing was left to chance. Passengers watched, some holding their breath, as the plane's engines powered down. Relief and awe rippled through the cabin. A few passengers whispered, "Who is this guy? How is he doing this?" Malik turned slightly toward the crew. The female flight attendant's gaze met his. No words were exchanged, but the power dynamics were clear. He didn't need to humiliate her. The truth of her previous arrogance had been exposed. Then came the ultimate act of authority. Malik, with unwavering composure, issued the words that would cement the shift. "The pilot is relieved of duty, effective immediately." "The airline has been notified." The room went silent. The pilot froze, his mouth opening and closing, unable to form a protest. The other flight attendants exchanged glances, realizing the magnitude of what had just occurred. Malik didn't gloat, didn't raise his voice. He simply walked back to his seat, his presence commanding respect without a single raised hand. Passengers began to murmur in astonishment and admiration. Some discreetly recorded on their phones, knowing this was a moment they would never forget. Malik remained calm, almost meditative, his eyes scanning the cabin one final time to ensure everyone's safety. Even the female flight attendant who had insulted him earlier avoided his gaze. Her previous confidence crushed under the weight of reality. Malik had turned the humiliation into a lesson in authority, composure, and decisive action. From humiliation to total control. The CEO changed everything in 12 minutes. The news spread like wildfire. Clips of Malik Thompson calmly confronting the flight crew, grounding the plane, and firing the pilot went viral within hours. Social media erupted with reactions, admiration, disbelief, and debate. Who is this man? Unbelievable! Finally, someone stood up to arrogance and negligence. CEO or not, this is how power should be used responsibly. Airline authorities issued a public statement acknowledging the safety violations Malik had. Exposed and confirmed the pilot had been relieved of duty pending investigation. Policy changes were announced, including stricter maintenance checks and updated safety protocols. Malik's actions had prevented a potential disaster and sparked a broader conversation about accountability and responsibility in aviation. Malik himself remained composed, as always. He gave a calm, measured interview to a major news outlet. "I didn't act out of anger or revenge. My priority was the safety of everyone on this plane. Leadership is not about asserting power. It's about taking responsibility when no one else will." His words resonated deeply with the public. Malik's handling of the situation became a case study in corporate ethics, crisis management, and standing up against injustice. The female flight attendant who had insulted him earlier was reassigned, and internal training programs were introduced to prevent discriminatory behavior. Passengers from that flight shared their experiences online. One woman wrote, "I've never seen such calm authority in a tense moment. He didn't yell, didn't overreact, he just fixed the problem." Malik continued his journey to the international conference. His reputation strengthened, not by ego, but by his principled and decisive action. The humiliation he endured moments earlier was forgotten by the public, replaced by respect and admiration. As the camera lingers on Malik walking through the airport, he reflects internally. True power isn't about dominance or anger. It's about clarity, responsibility, and using your position to make a difference. One man's composure turned humiliation into authority and changed lives in 12 minutes. Soft, inspiring music plays as the credits roll, leaving the audience with a sense of awe and reflection.